Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Lamog, an instructor with the Guitars for Vets Learning Center and CavArts, the Challenge America Veteran Arts Community. Welcome to episode 3 of the G4V Guitar Shop, where, for the next hour, our panel of guitar instructors apply its collective knowledge, experience, and expertise to focus on all things guitar. Playing them, maintaining them, and even acquiring them because, a guitar player can never have enough guitars, right? In today's discussion, we'll cover some of the more popular materials used to build an acoustic guitar, including a variety of popular and exotic tone woods. We'll also touch on bracing and talk about how this feature affects the guitar's ability to withstand the physical stress applied by the strings and player and still produce a wide spectrum of tones. But first, Daniel, let's get over here. My co-host for the
Hey, I'm right
Guitar
here,
Shop. Yeah,
man.
man. Hey, it's
I'm
been a
right
busy month.
next to you. How can you miss me?
I know. For the last month or so, we have talked about so many topics. There are so
Oh,
many things to bring to the guitar shop, and we hear from a number of people as to what they want to see. And well, I know that the first time we did this, episode 1, tone woods, we briefly touched on that. What else did we talk about? We had some
oh,
other
we've
things.
talked. Oh, goodness. What kind of gear what we're going to present, why we're presenting this at all. I mean, this is a forum for advanced and beginners, a forum that the experienced people or the experienced players can help out the beginner players on guitar choices, on equipment choices, on what to not or what to look for and what not to look for. I mean, what not to get hooked into. What do you want to look for? What's your interests? And we're here to help you. So
Yeah. You go into a guitar shop and what do you see? And that's really the
right behind me.
story, yeah, to this podcast, to this show. So we're so glad that you're a part of this. Let's go ahead and bring in this week's panel. What I'd like to do is, first of all, introduce you to Rich Haas, who is one of, one of our most valued, contributors to the guitar shop because the technical pieces, I got to tell you, I'll play them, I'll buy them, but will I work on them? Rich, what do you say? How are you?
I'm doing great. I do the best to try to explain what I know, but now that we got a professional attending today, I'm going to have to be careful and not bribe too much because
Oh,
there's a lot of theory and there's a lot of subjective decision making in this in building. But I've built several guitars, a dozen or so, and I do a lot of repair work for Guitar for Vets local guys.
yeah,
So I'm always learning. I
yeah,
spend
I
a lot
know.
of time studying and a lot less time
Yeah, I
doing, I
know.
think.
You've
So
interacted
much to
with a
learn.
number of our community members as well too, giving them some advice, which I know that they've appreciated. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Bruce Bjork, who has also been on our live events in the past, and he's going to be a part of the panel as well too. Bruce, how are things out there in the Northeast?
Oh, yeah, pretty good. I've been a I've been a teacher for guitars for vets for I don't know, maybe 8 years or so. I've had more than 50 students graduate. As far as instruments, I have one, two, three. I have six acoustic instruments. Two banjos. One is a custom. The other one is a gold tone Bela Fleck baritone. I've got a 1992 Deneve Dobro. I've got a Gill D40 that I bought in 1967. I have a mountain dulcimer and a mandolin, so I've pretty much covered the
You're
acoustic
you
stuff.
you got quite the collection there. We're going to go ahead and introduce yet another person who will be on the panel today, and that would be Robert Rask. How are you?
Hello.
Robert is a guitar builder. He's a luthier. He's a third generation woodworker who combines his passion for music with elite craftsmanship in producing one-of-a-kind creations. I'm taking that one off of your website, Robert. He distinguishes himself by using rare, hidden materials from all over the world and making something new and uniquely special to hand off to musicians everywhere. We are so honored to have you, Robert. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
How
you.
are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Well, we see you're in your workshop. It's
Yes.
awesome. All right, so hey, let's go ahead and get started. Let's get underway. For this show, we're aiming to raise awareness to the other components which make up an acoustic guitar for a couple of reasons. With the knowledge we share today, you can familiarize yourself with your own guitar and see if the attributes line up with what guitar makers and professionals in the industry are telling us. If you also are looking to acquire another guitar, use the information that you'll be hearing come from the panel today in helping you make that decision. So, with that said, let's go ahead and open the conversation with tone woods. In preparing for this discussion, I admit when I first went shopping for guitars, there wasn't a whole lot of thought behind the tone woods used in that guitar. I mean, to me, it was just pick up the guitar. Did it feel right? How's the volume? How's the tone? Was it comfortable to play? But I never really gave tone woods any thought. I'm going to throw this out to the panel, and Daniel, I'm going to start with you first of all. Did you approach looking for guitars the same way?
I did. Once I started my own research on tone woods and, well, construction of guitars, and this was many years ago, shows how old I am, that I always wanted to know what made it work, why it does what it does. Why does the spruce have to be the top? Although now I have a guitar that has maple. I've never owned a guitar that has a maple top. Why does ebony and rosewood feel better as a hardwood or as a tone wood used on a neck? What's the difference? Why would you use mahogany and maple for sides and not pine? Why not the spruce? Why wouldn't you have a whole guitar that's made out of spruce? Although there are some that are made out of cedar, which are the classical guitars, the flamenco guitars and stuff. So that's where I started getting that natural curiosity, because I've always had natural curiosity in how things are made anyway. Being I built houses and worked with a lot of wood myself. So the just that natural curiosity brought me to researching and knowing why different components of your guitar work the way they work. Over to you, Rich.
Oh, thanks. Well, I started repairing with popsicle sticks, and then I realized I was probably hurting guitars more than helping them. But I've always been fascinated with why they sound the way they do and why are they different. I don't like the wood industry because softwoods and hardwoods have been a misnomer for me because we've worked with hardwoods and softwoods, and I'm not sure what makes one hard or one soft other than the leaves. Uh, and I've also struggled. I probably don't hear the finesse of the tones as well as I should, but I'm not a musician, so I'm a whittler. um, I'm enamored with the fact that there are 70,000 or so species of wood on this earth. And as I researched the differences between different woods and sounds, and I started getting into the fact that woods from the lower part of a tree are different than the upper part of the tree, and the environment impacts how they grow and I think react. So when I was trying to understand why rosewood sounds so beautiful, and then I got into how many different types of rosewoods there are, I'm really lost. So I'm looking forward to learning more about it because it's really complicated. There's a lot of science and an awful lot of subjectivity. And I'm an engineer, so I like to have things organized by formula. And I just haven't been able to get that with music stuff.
Matt,
because it's
thank you
so
for
subjective.
explaining that because I think that's probably what turned me off from looking at Tonewood specifically because there is so much science behind it. Robert, I know you're chomping at the bit here, but before we do that, Bruce, you've got so many instruments. You must have a story to share about, when you selected those instruments. Was Tonewoods a factor in any of those purchases?
I never, well, yes, actually, as years gone by, I have been pretty specific. But when I bought this guitar in 1967, I didn't give a thought to Tonewood. But when it got to the point where I could buy a nice guitar, because I had other guitars, I just basically went to a music store and played a bunch of them, and then fell in love with this guild.
Mm,
So it's kind of it's basically a D18 is what it is. It's a
beautiful.
dreadnought. It's a Sitka spruce top, cedar, bracing, rosewood neck. I haven't had to do anything to this guitar other than I've had the frets replaced a couple of times, and I had to change the tuning pegs. But it's just rock solid, and it holds. I mean, I've had, how many years? It's an old. I think it's considered vintage now. So then,
Mm.
as I started playing more and more, um, I played banjo for a long time, and it was basically your bluegrass style resonator banjo, and it was maple. But then I started playing clawhammer style, so I sold that, and I got that tan colored. That was a custom build for me here in Portland, and I had it. It's walnut, so it's kind of it's a mix between mahogany and maple. I'm not a big fan of maple because I find it too bright. Um, that the Dobro, which was custom built for me in '92, is all mahogany, and it just has a really nice tone. And then a couple of years ago, I got that baritone banjo over there, which is maple. It's tuned down a fifth from the regular banjo, and I use that in my bands because it has a very distinctive, sound. It sounds like a banjo, but it's very, very deep.
Hmm.
Um, so that's about. I mean, just like I said, as the years have gone by, I've become more specific with the tone that I like. I also had the opportunity to tour the Bourgeois factory in Lewiston, and it was very interesting to see how they build guitars, especially the tops. They actually hold the top and hit it with a mallet and and then shave it. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And I think I also sent you guys a thing on torrefied wood,
Right,
which
right, right. Let's not. I don't want to go too far into that one just yet
okay.
because that I know we're going to go down, and it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole, on all of these topics. Robert, what are your thoughts on all of this? As someone who's
It all
worked.
sounds amazing. I mean, first off, that guitar of yours, Bruce, is just it sounds full and warm and beautiful. I love it. That's kind of the tone that resonates with me most as well. And then as far as tone woods, it's an interesting thing because I'm going to kind of play both sides of the debate here, if you will, or create a debate. Number one, tone will be colored by the different tone woods. You're going to be able to steer the tone in a direction, uh, and that's part of the recipe when I'm building a guitar. I'm gonna use that specific species to point or direct it, but not all pieces of wood are going to sound the same. If you build 10 guitars that are identical in every freaking way that possible, and let's say you had the precision of a machine, so there were no other variables, are those guitars going to sound the same? What do you guys think?
Hmm, I
No,
Not
think
even
so. Yeah.
close. Not even close. Well,
Hmm.
they will sound close. I'm gonna recant that a little bit. They will sound close. I had an experience where I wanted to prove a theory. And I was talking about linings. You guys have seen when you look inside of your guitar, you see the kerf lining, right? And there's three types of kerf lining. And by the way, these are great. They're wonderful. They're used in $50,000 guitars, so there's nothing wrong with them. Okay. But on my high end guitars, I like to use what I call solid linings. And I build up two layers of these, and you have to bend them on an iron just like you would with the guitar sides. Okay. It adds rigidity to your sides. And if you think of a diving board, you want a really solid foundation to get the spring because you want that top moving, right? So I was going to be smart and build two identical guitars, one with kerf lining and one with solid lining, so I could put it to rest and demonstrate how much more uh, volume and projection I would get with solid linings. I bought everything. I got everything identical. I called my suppliers and said I need two spruce tops that are identical. I used Ovencall for the back and sides. And the last things to arrive were these spruce tops. And you could see the grain pattern that it was literally 4 slices out of the same board. Okay. I pick up the first one and tapped it and listened to it. And I heard this beautiful ring and it was, nice and sustained. And it just bong. Oh, cool. This is going to be fun. Set it down. I pick up the next piece and went bong. And went, oh, shoot. So much for my test. It's not going to matter. So my best explanation on this is if you had triplet daughters and they all sang, would they sound the same? They're not going to sound the same. You might be able to tell them apart by their voice easier than by looking at them, right? But they're going to sound like sisters. So that's kind of the best example that I can give for tone woods. It's going to color the tone into a certain family maybe, but it's still going to have its individual unique voice. And it's no different than a fingerprint. Every one of them's different, right? And so I can use that in my recipe for steering a tone a certain direction, but I also have a little bit of leeway with it. I can make a maple guitar sound like a mahogany guitar with some of the bracing and shaping and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun.
Hey, listen, actually we've got a video demonstration. It's a 2-minute video demonstration that talks specifically to what you're talking about. It was Sweetwater who put together this side-by-side comparison.
The Breedlove Tonewood Showcase Series. Sweetwater's acoustic guitar category manager, Tom Grant, knew that Breedlove guitars would be the perfect partner for this never-before attempted endeavor. After talking with Angela Christensen at Breedlove, they came up with the concept of the Tonewood Showcase guitars. So you start with Breedlove's concert guitar, use hand-picked, highly figured bear claw Sitka spruce for the tops, mahogany for the necks, and ebony for the fingerboards, and 5 different back and sides: cocobolo, myrtlewood, koa, walnut, and rosewood. The one exception to our wood rule is that the guitar with myrtlewood back and sides has a maple neck. Lynn Fuston and I took them into Sweetwater Studio A and recorded playing examples of each of them. We used a pair of Telefunken C12s through Fern mic pre's to capture as much nuance as possible. So what you'll hear is a short segment from each guitar. The differences are subtle, so use your best listening environment to catch all the details.
But Sweetwater they did contract with Breedlove. They brought in the tone woods in each of the guitars similarly built, and then they ran it through the same microphone in the studio, same player. And you should be able to, when you play it back, hear some subtle differences. One may sound brighter than the other one. Maybe the mid-ranges boost a little more than the others. But check it out. Definitely something worth looking into if you're looking to see more about how tone woods actually do affect the sound, the tone of the guitar, and other things. Anyway, with that said, the next thing that I've got listed here is, all right, we talked about the top, some of the different tone woods, the Sitka spruce and Adirondack spruce, and you also mentioned cedar and maple in a conversation that we had. What are your thoughts on the different types of tone woods that are used in your style of playing?
In my style of playing, that's interesting because I'm not a country player per se. I have been known to dabble in a country band here and there, but I'm a hard rock player. So I'm looking for more of acoustic guitars if I need to solo with that guitar. So I'm looking for brilliance. I'm looking for some volume. But I found that like this Takamine I have right now, it's a G series from the 90s. I was looking for one forever, and I finally found one, believe it or not, at a tag sale. But I like the brilliance and the projection, the tones, and it's just the way it plays for soloing. So as far as like a spruce top, I have a beautiful Takamine 12 string, natural. And that spruce top, I mean, the tone, the deep tones that guitar has, and the sustain and the resonance that the top affords that 12 string it's just amazing. Whoever built that guitar actually picked out a nice piece of wood.
Let me throw this out to the panel. Sitka spruce, that is one of the most popular types of tone woods. So perhaps most of the community has a guitar that has the Sitka spruce top to it. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, it's by far the most common tone wood used today for the top.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Rich, let me throw it to you next because I know you've been working with a few guitars yourself. But is there something that you have to be mindful of when you work with these different tone woods? Is there any special handling or any special care that you can think of when you work with some of these guitars?
Well, because the spruces are nice and white, normally a nice bright color, and a lot of what the guitar is a piece of work, artwork. We try to keep it clean, which is hard for me because I'm kind of sloppy and I got chisels flying all over the place. But no, I kind of work with whatever material I have. I think I focus more on, I see cracks and loose braces, and like I say, I accept whatever comes in. Um, Usually I have to give people lectures on environmental control, take care of temperature and humidity, and keep it away from the dog, and don't store them underneath your bed. So no, I guess my ear's not good enough to really hear the difference, and I certainly don't have enough of a supply to influence that. I'm a hack, so I'm sure Robert has an opinion on what to look for. I work with whatever I've got.
Robert, what are your thoughts?
You know what? I love them all, and they all have different characteristics. And so, depending on what I'm going for, and so when you're talking spruces specifically, I'll give you one example. Adirondack spruce or red spruce tends to take a lot longer to open up. Guitar wood. When you strum the strings, everything is vibrating, of course, and the more that they're played, the better their sound. The worst a guitar will ever sound is the day you string it up. And then it just grows and gets better and better with time. So Adirondack has a longer break-in time. And, they kind of refer to the golden era of guitars of the 30s and 40s. Those have been around for 100 years, almost 80, 90, 100 years. And they've had time to really open up. So Sitka spruce is a little quicker out of the gate to find its tone. But I think Adirondack blooms a little more beautifully, if that makes sense. But then you get into cedars, which are a little bit more warm, and they're gonna be a little more of the darker tones and a little more bass, things like that. Redwood is kind of sitting in a little bit of the middle of that. Sinker redwood's one of my favorites. And
Is
so
that one of the newer woods, Robert?
sinker wood, redwood,
Yeah.
what it is it's actually redwood trees that were, you know, they used to cut the logs down and float them down a river to the sawmill, and a certain
Right.
number of them would sink. And so sinker redwood trees have been sitting at the bottom of a river for 100 years. Now they're pulling them up, and while they were under the river, they were absorbing and wicking up all the minerals from the ground, and it streaks them. It enriches the color and the tone of the guitar. And so it's really beautiful, incredible stuff. It smells like the bottom of a river when you're working with it. You know, it's not pleasant smelling.
Oh wow. I just bought a Taylor with Sinker Redwood. I'll have to do the sniff test on it.
Sure. There was a question about do the sides and backwoods have the most effect on the tone? And I'd like to just go ahead and address that. If that's
for it.
okay.
Yeah, of course.
Number one is going to be your soundboard or the top of the guitar. That's your number one. And again, the back and sides will kind of steer the color of the tone a certain one direction or another.
Yeah, well, and why don't we go ahead and stick to that topic? You know, because I mean, we've talked about the front, I mean, the top, I should say, the soundboard itself, and the popular tone woods, and back and sides. That has come up in, at least in the community thread, even last month's, I believe. You know, what is the significance of the back and sides of the guitar? What's the role that it plays?
Sure.
Go for it, Robert. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, the sides aren't going to give you a whole lot of tone from that. What I'm looking for in my sides is I want them to be as rigid as possible. Okay. And so that's really, in fact, I'm migrating into making laminated sides. Now, obviously, you don't want a laminated top, and some people do laminated boxes or backs. That's fine too. But I laminate my sides, but I want the back and the top to be able to move, and I want that energy to transfer from, you know, through the sides, and have that be as rigid as possible and not lose any uh, or absorb any of that you know energy. And
If,
so
so here's a question about that. If, say, for instance, the laminate itself, if there's a choice by a guitar maker to either laminate or not laminate. Now, I was just
Mhm.
taking a look at some of the guitars on Sweetwater. There was a guitar that was fully laminated. What is really the incentive for buying something that is
you
fully
know,
laminated?
there's I would personally recommend against a laminated top on any guitar. They're usually going to be when they're trying to just save money. They want to give you the look of a really pretty spruce top or something else. Sometimes I've seen them with zebra wood and some exotic woods on the top, but then they laminate it and it just kills the whole tone. It just, and not only
That's lovely.
that,
Yeah.
it will never open up. It'll sound the same on day one as it does on, 10 years later.
Hmm.
But one point from the handyman guy, they don't take as much concern about environment, so they'll take a lot of abuse.
Mm,
So
mm,
for people
that's
who
true.
want to take them on camping trips,
That's a
they're
good
not quite
point.
as fragile.
Oh,
Not
true.
for a musician, but for a maintenance guy.
Nice. Bruce.
Yeah.
The only exception to that would be a dobro. Beard Resophonics, they're probably incredibly popular dobros, and their most popular model is a Mike Aldridge, and it's birch and it's laminated. The whole guitar is
Mhm.
laminated, and they have the most incredible tone. But the tone from a dobro does not come from the wood so much
Yeah.
as the cone and how it's how it sets.
The next topic here is the neck and the fingerboard, and if we can talk a little bit about the role that the woods play in the town, or the tone, I should say, coming, if there is even one, from the
Oh yeah.
neck and fingerboard.
I'll start on that. My
Sir.
preference is ebony, always ebony. Although it's very, it's getting to be kind of a rarity, but I have several two of my acoustics and several of my electric guitars have ebony. I choose ebony. I prefer ebony. I like the slickness. Um, I like the sustain it brings to the neck. Uh, So, and you know, rosewood right up there. I mean, it's nice. The feel of the rosewood, the easy maintaining of rosewood. Of course, the easiest maintained is the maple. Maple's great. I do have a strat with, or two strats with maple necks. Um, Also pretty slick. One thing I'd like to add as far as to the neck itself, um, I like I like mahogany necks. They're sturdy, man. You know, they're like bricks. You can't beat them. And for, you know, as far as sustain goes, I think personally, it's better than a maple neck. So
You know,
doing it
I
with extensity.
That's the mahogany.
yeah, I agree. And a mahogany necks is so much easier to work.
Yeah.
Oh, are
Easier
they?
to tune. Oh yeah, yeah. Maple is not my friend. It doesn't like me. I don't like it. And rosewood's too hard to get, and it's too expensive, so I can't afford to hack at it with my chainsaw. So mahogany's my neck of choice. Robert, I got a question though. Any
Sure.
opinion on bolt-on necks versus the tongue and groove, dovetail
Oh,
necks?
dovetail. The dovetail neck joint, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? First off, let me go to the neck wood, conversation real quick. There's a reason why people use mahogany almost exclusively. There's some exceptions. There's maple. There's a few others that can be used, and you can use almost anything. But it's the weight to ratio, the strength to weight ratio on mahogany is what makes it so amazing. And so almost all of my necks on acoustic guitars are mahogany, just because you're going to have a very lightweight, easy to work with wood that's just going to be very rigid, and it's going to withstand the string tension better than most woods. So that's the biggest reason. Now I use maple almost exclusively on electric guitars because I paint most of them instead of using, and I can avoid a step because with mahogany, I'm going to have to pore fill it. It's got very open pores. And so on maple, I'm going to paint it anyway. I might as well use a paint grade material that I don't have to, I can eliminate a step of paint, of pore filling, if that makes sense. Um, and as far as joints, I've used all three. There's a direct butt joint where you just have bolt it on and pull the neck tight. That was the first guitar I ever made, and the second. Then for a while, I did a mortise and tenon bolt on neck, and they're wonderful. They're easier to execute. There's no question about that. Um, and they all sounded wonderful. And then now I do almost exclusively dovetail neck joints. And part of it, a very small part of it, is that there's when you have a high end guitar, people kind of expect a traditional neck joint. There is a little bit of an expectation there that's fun to be able to meet. But more important for me, it gives me a canvas. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. This is what I call my heel block, right? And my dovetail will get cut into here so that my neck can attach. But when you put the top on and you get that top, you're going to be able to see just the bottom end of that block in there through the sound hole. So I use that to do inlays. And so really the only reason why I'm doing dovetail neck joints is to leave this canvas. I don't want to look in and see a bolt. I want to see some artwork, if that makes sense. That's my own personal reason, but there is no major sound difference that I can
No.
from one neck joint. If it's done well and executed well, they're all going to sound great.
I have nightmares getting them hung straight, installed correctly, right? Lined,
Yeah.
vertical.
Oh yeah. It took me several guitars to kind of get the process down, but
I have to work
now I've got
myself.
it pretty.
I have
Yeah.
to
And
work
then,
up a couple days.
yeah. Yep. Well, now on fretboards, I've got a few blanks here and I wanted to show you kind of a little demonstration that I think you might find interesting. As far as, yes, I like the ebonies. I like the hardwoods. Really, any hardwood. Will it contribute to the sound? Absolutely. But here's the challenge that we're going to have as luthiers or anybody really. How much and how can you point your finger at what it's doing to the tone, because there's so many other aspects. And we know that even two tops that are identical from the same board are going to sound completely different, right? So how can I say, oh, I used an Indian rosewood? This is, you'd have to build thousands of them in a laboratory and then aggregate the results, right? So I don't worry so much about what the tone will be when it comes to the fretboard material. I want to know that I'm using a very difficult, or not difficult, a very dense wood, right? I want it to hold up over time. And if it's dense, it's going to resonate better anyway, right? So this right here is an ebony fretboard blank. This will turn into a fretboard at some point. Let me find the node here. Now, I don't know where my microphone on my computer is. I don't know if you can hear this or not. Can you hear that? Not at all? Okay.
No.
Well, so much for my example. This one has a totally different pitch completely, and this is bloodwood. It's naturally red. It's just gorgeous. And then this is Honduran rosewood, and this is probably one of the most resonant woods. They use it for marimbas, for marimba keys and stuff, because it just rings, right? And so it's a phenomenal tone wood. So when it comes to the fretboard, I'm usually making it based off stylistic, because they're all going to sound good so long as I'm using a very dense hardwood.
Real good. Hey, let's see, we're looking at almost a quarter to the hour. I want to bring the conversation to a close so we can go ahead and have a deeper conversation with Robert here. But in terms of the traditional tone woods and how naturally we're hearing about the depletion of these woods, whether it be deforestation, something environmental, but what are guitar makers looking to in place of traditional tone woods? What are some of the more, I don't know, up and coming tone woods, if you will, replacing the ones that we can no longer get to? Thoughts?
You want me to take it?
Go for it, man.
Okay. All right. So you're seeing a lot of shifts, and you're seeing some hybrid materials coming out. For example, there's one that I've been using called Royal Blackwood, and it's literally Purple Heart, which is far more sustainable. It's not on the CITES list, right? It's not endangered, and it's a purple natural wood. But what they do is they heat bake it, kind of like the torrefication, but they get it to a really, really extreme temperature, and it just goes charcoal black. And it still sounds amazing, and it works well. It goes a little lighter weight because you remove all the moisture. It's a lot more stable because you've gotten all the moisture out. And it's an amazing wood to work with. There's another one that's up out of Canada. Thermo wood is what it's called, and it's maple that they're dropping into a vacuum chamber and pouring it full of black resin and pulling a vacuum and pulling all that resin into the voids inside the wood, inside the cellular level. And so when they bake that, it becomes very hard, a lot harder than it was, and it's more resin than wood now. And so it still resonates and stuff like that, but it's a great alternative. So I'm using some of those things. Rich Light is a paper product with layers of paper. There's wood products that are wood and resin, so some hybrids, and all of them have great resonance and sound wonderful. And they give you a very consistent, if you want a jet black fretboard, that's what you go to. I don't think you lose anything, but it is a lot more sustainable. So I kind of go back and forth depending on what the guitar calls for.
Thanks. And Bruce had brought up an article to the panel this past week. It was torrefied wood. And Bruce, do you want to go ahead and bring this up to Robert and maybe get his thoughts on that?
Yeah, torrefied wood's been around for a while. It's wood that I think they put it in an oven and take all of the oxygen out of the oven. I think they use nitrogen, and they basically bake it. And what happens is it ages the wood. And I think it was originally used for flooring, oak floors. But and I believe it was Dan Bourgeois who started to use that technique with his woods, so that the top was torrefied. Yeah. And what it does is it ages the wood, and he's actually just selling that wood to other luthiers. So I'm not sure if he was the one who developed it, but I think he's kind of the main guy now for making torrefied wood. So what it does is it's basically matching the properties of wood that has laid in a lake or a river for 100 years. It's that same concept.
It's pre-aged almost. That's kind of, like I said earlier, when you're strumming the strings and everything is vibrating, the lignin inside the wood is breaking down and the cells are opening up, and so you get a different tone. This is a visual. This is not scientific, but this is kind of how I like to envision it. I'm a visual thinker. But I think of pipe organs, and the lignin in wood has like these little valves, just like the veins in your legs, right? And those have to break down, and then the air can just flow through, and the sound can flow through, kind of like pipe organs. And so when you do that, that's what kind of burns up and breaks down and opens up. So you get the benefit of a 60-year-old piece of wood that didn't have to be played, and you didn't have to wait for 60 years to use it.
Creative, really creative, innovative, I should say.
Very.
All right. Well, listen, let's go ahead and bring this portion of the guitar shop to a standby, so we can go ahead and talk a little bit more about what raskguitars.com is all about. That's Robert's website. And I want to go ahead and thank Rich and Bruce for hanging out with us on the panel this morning. And I know you guys are going to be in the background when we go through this conversation with Robert. So keep it coming. Keep those questions coming. I'm going to go ahead and defer right now to Daniel because I know that there are some questions that have come through on the chat that maybe we can run past Robert if he's up for it.
Sure, absolutely. Would you be up for that, Robert?
Sure, you bet.
As if I didn't know. There was one comment from one of our members here so what about an exotic wood like I'm assuming ironwood, which he claims he knows splinters like tungsten. Wouldn't ironwood be kind of heavy?
Yes, ironwood is extremely heavy. Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the bigger problems is you don't find it in very big boards readily available. So ironwood, and there's variations of it. Desert ironwood comes from Arizona. Funny story about that in a second, but ironwood would be a great fretboard, and it would just be an amazing fretboard.
And we have another comment on your thoughts on Western red cedar top and African blackwood back.
Ooh, that
sounds beautiful, doesn't it?
Sounds incredible. That would be so. Yeah. Now I want to build one. Thank you. Yes, no, that would be an amazing combination. By the way, the desert ironwood story, real quick. Every wood has its own smell. Some of it smells like roses and tulips, and some like cinnamon, and some, and then you've got desert ironwood. And the only way I can describe it is it smells like a cat peed on a dead corpse. It's the worst thing. And it fills the whole shop full of the worst smell, and it lingers, and it's just horrible. It's incredibly beautiful, but man, it's really got to be worth it to use that stuff.
I built a guitar out of zebra wood, and I almost got a divorce over it.
Yeah, right. That smells like a
smell. Like it was a zoo.
Yep.
Your thoughts on electric vibrators that increase the time it takes to open up the top?
Absolutely. They're great tools. There's a few different manufacturers of them now. And yeah, I mean, the concept, just for those who don't know what they are, they have little rubber things. You plug them in and strap it around your guitar, and it just vibrates the strings. So you can leave it there, for a couple of weeks, and several weeks of having that vibration on there will simulate several years of opening up the wood. They are effective. They do the job. I don't use them. I wouldn't mind. I don't have any reason not to. I just kind of let the guitar do its thing naturally.
I do have a question. Is your feelings on Sapple?
Sapele? Is that what you're thinking?
Sapele? Yeah, I'm sorry. I always say it wrong.
No, you're fine. Hey, it could be me saying it wrong. You know what? Sapele is a beautiful wood. It's a mahogany substitute, and so in furniture, we'll use it in place of mahogany because it's a little more readily accessible and sometimes more affordable. Uh, it's heavier. It's quite a bit heavier than the mahoganies. I did a guitar with a sapele neck. It works very much like mahogany, so it's got the same properties and stuff like. But that neck was quite a bit heavier than the mahogany necks that I typically do. But the sound is wonderful when I use it back and sides. The sound is very beautiful, and I have one customer, and one of my favorite combinations is a Western red cedar top with a sapele back and sides. It gives you such a beautiful, full range of sound. It's just incredible.
I just see the Takamini's starting to work with it.
It's great.
So I guess that's all we have for questions at the moment. Anybody? We're going to have a question and answer after we're done.
Throw them in the chat feature for sure, and we'll get to more of them.
Yeah. Oh, definitely throw it at us. And at the end, obviously we'll try to entertain them.
All right.
But to you, Tom, and let's spotlight Mr. Robert here.
Well, listen, let's go ahead and put the focus on you and your guitar building and your experience as a luthier and life in general, because I know that after speaking with you on a couple different occasions, there are some pretty remarkable stories that emerged from those conversations that I'm hoping that you're able to go ahead and share. But before we start, Robert, let me give you a formal introduction to our community of guitar playing veterans. They're learning to play. They're inspired by music. Robert Rask is a guitar builder and luthier. You can find more of his work at www.raskguitars.com. After learning to play guitar in 2006, Robert spent years studying luthiery and set out to create his own instruments, prizing beautiful tone, playability, and artistry above all else. Quote, "What I do is a form of co-creation. I get to use materials made by the great creator and co-create to make something new and beautiful. But the pinnacle of what I do comes when I then hand that creation off to someone else who gets to use it to create something far more important and powerful than anything I've done. That's the power of music, the power to inspire, lift, heal. Literally, the power to save lives, as it did mine." Some of the names in popular music that have played a Rask guitar include Edwin McCain, Third Eye Blind, Sugar Ray, Smash Mouth, and Jeff Skunk Baxter of Steely Dan and Doobie Brothers fame. Rask goes on to say, quote, "That's the power of music, the power to inspire, lift, heal. Literally the power to save lives as it did mine," unquote. I thought it was important to share that information just to give you all a sense of what my conversation and Daniel's conversation with Robert was like. It was just amazing. So, Robert, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Let's continue the conversation about the guitar building process, if that's all right.
You bet. I appreciate it.
Let's talk about
I'm honored
before
to be
you
here.
became a luthier, before you had this idea of becoming a guitar builder and
Yeah.
working with guitars. Can you talk a little bit about your earliest memories of music and how
Yeah.
it became an essential part of your life?
Well, I think music is a part of most people's life from early on. I was not particularly musically inclined. I loved to sing when I was a little kid, singing into a hairbrush, along to my favorite songs and things. Um, but I didn't play any instruments. I didn't come from a musical family, with the exception of a brother who's a drummer, and my mom played piano in church, and that was about it. Um, but I've always had a deep connection, and I mean, music. I mean, what it can do for you. I mean, a song, you can hear it and hadn't heard it in 30 years, and you remember the words. And what else can you do that with? There's something that's tapping into a part of your brain that doesn't normally get tapped into, if that makes sense. And so there's something very powerful. I don't think I ever will fully understand it. But as a kid, I've always loved it, and music was a big part of my life, just listening to it. And it wasn't until probably 20 years ago, I was in my 30s, and life hit a snag, if you will. Like it does for everybody. My problems aren't unique. I mean, in fact, I'm a lightweight when it comes to what people have been through. Okay, but it was my personal challenges, the things that brought me to the brink, or my lowest of lows, if you will. And I was married for 10 years, had two beautiful daughters, and then lost everything. The family, went away, and that was devastating to me at the time. And then the choices that I made consequently ended up compounding my problems, and I spiraled into a kind of a even darker place. Got to the point where, let's just face it, I was ready to be done. I believed at that moment that the world would be better without me in it. And I came really close to ending my life on one particular night. And I'm grateful that I didn't. But around that time was when I discovered a guitar. I'd never really played one before. I didn't know what to do with it, but a friend of mine had taught me about writing songs. And so I went and bought a guitar one night. I brought it home, and I started learning chords. I bought a book, and here's an A and here's an E, and I started playing them together and back and forth, and went, wow, that sounds like a song. And I started writing lyrics to it. And my songs that I wrote in those days were not any good, but it was incredibly healing and cathartic. And it was incredible how the darkness that I was living in just started to dissipate as I started to get all this emotion out through music, through writing these songs. And it literally saved my life. It literally provided healing, and it cleared away and then from there it gave me the opportunity to start to grow and to develop. And it was around that time because I was a lifelong woodworker, and that was something that always fascinated me. I'm looking inside this guitar one day, and I noticed all of a sudden it dawns on me, it kind of connects. Wow, that's made out of wood. I wonder if I could do something like that. So I started buying books and talking to other luthiers, and that kind of started that journey and how I got into guitar building, if you will.
Man. So, guitar came into your life just 20 years ago, is what it
Yeah,
sounds like.
yeah,
And it,
yeah.
like it does with so many veterans that I've spoken with, a number of them have graduated through our program. The
Mhm.
power of music helped them to heal,
Yeah,
similar to what you're sharing. Hey, I want to share a picture. I want to, kind of bring
sure.
the audience in on, I think it's something that you had posted recently, this photograph, and you
Ah,
where
that's
you're
cool.
at today with
Yeah,
guitars and being
yeah.
a luthier. Get
And
with it,
so,
Robert.
yeah, knowing that I didn't really have any musical ties in our family was almost a little depressing, right? It's like, man, it feels like there's something more here, but nobody that I knew in my family played any instruments at all. And then just a few weeks ago, my mom called me up and was so excited because she found this picture of Lillian McKim, who's pictured on the right, holding the guitars. You can see her fingers there. She's a player. You can tell just by the picture, the way she's holding that guitar. This was Salvation Army uniforms, but this was my great grandmother. And what was cool is 30 years ago, I visited her gravesite with my grandmother, her daughter. Um, Lillian died when my grandmother was 2 months old, and my grandmother was raised in that town where she was born and where Lillian is buried. And she'd go and sit at her graveside after school and do her homework, sitting there with her mother.
Mhm.
And I sat for 8 hours one day and took my fingers to feel the ridges in the headstone that you couldn't see anymore, because it had worn away with time. And I painted them all in. I painted gold into all the letters so it could be read and legible. That was 30 years ago. And then to find out now, a couple weeks ago, that Lillian plays the guitar.
There's
That's
your link.
now I have this little connection. Maybe I'm a little bit too romantic in my thinking, but
Oh,
it's in my blood. There is. It's the guitar is there.
well,
It's not me that started it.
let's let's peel back the onion a little bit here from the
I
conversations
love
that
it.
we've had. Let's talk about. Let's go now to the building, the process of. Yeah, you play guitar. You're
Yeah.
inspired that it's wood. Now you're starting to build guitars, and
Yeah.
maybe you can talk about, first of all, what was that? What was that like building your first guitar, and
Oh,
whatever became of it?
incredible. Yeah. So I started. It took me 2 years to build up the nerve to actually start, right? And that was early on. That was 20 years ago. And so I was reading books, and I was doing all kinds of other woodworking and talking to people. And then I finally, okay, I think I can do this. And so I start building a couple of neck blanks, and then I think 5 years after my divorce, I ended up remarrying, and everything went into storage, and I didn't have anywhere to work on anything.
Mm.
So it literally took me like 10 years to build the first guitar, mostly because I had to wait for a place to do it. But once I started up again, um, there was 2 years of doing this on the side part time and having to figure out how to build templates and jigs and fixtures and what tools to use. And there were several times where I'd get caught up on a process that I didn't understand, or and might have taken me 3 months to kind of build the nerve up to do the next step. So it took me 3 years to get to it. Then on the day that I strung it up, wow, all of a sudden the panic starts in, right? Because I'm standing over this instrument that I just spent the last 2 years building and 10 years preparing for. and now I'm going to put strings on it. And I don't know if it's going to sound like rubber bands in a cardboard box, or if it's going to play in tune, or if it's going to be able
The
to,
mystery. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, or is it going to hold it together under the tension of the 150 pounds of string tension that we're going to put on this thing, or is it just going to implode? So I used the lightest gauge strings I could get,
Nice.
wound it up, and it got to, I got it all tuned up, and then we strummed the first few chords on that, and that filled the room with the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard in my life. And I just lost it. It was like having a baby,
Oh, I bet.
well, like watching my wife have a kid. Okay.
Creation.
It was
created
absolutely incredible.
something. Yeah. Oh
It
my
was
goodness.
absolutely incredible. So, but then what really sealed the deal for me was the next day. I had this friend who had been following my journey in building this guitar, and he says, when you get it done, you got to bring it over. I want to hear it. And I take it to him. I said, I finally got it done. So, and he plays it, and he's kind of stunned by the sound. And then he says, hey, can I borrow this thing? And I said, sure, yeah, why? Well, it turns out he had written this rock opera 25 years ago, but now was in the process of recording all the music, and they're doing another stab at it. It's actually going to Broadway. It's going to be this huge thing. But he wanted to use it to record all the acoustic guitar on this rock opera. And I thought, wow, are you kidding me? That's like the best compliment I could ever imagine getting. But when I learned about what it was a true story about a young man who took his own life. And this rock opera, though very tragic and difficult to watch, it's beautifully redemptive, and it shines a light on mental illness and suicide awareness. And all of a sudden I had this epiphany, and I realized that what I'm doing might make a difference in this world. Maybe what I'm doing, I get to build these beautiful instruments and putting them into the hands of guys like this guy who wrote this thing, and he's going to go out and play it for millions of people all over the world, and he's going to bring healing. He's going to bring light into the world. And when I realized that that's what I got to be a part of, that changed my life. From that moment on, I had a new understanding of who I am. And for the first time in my life, I had clarity, fulfillment. Like, I still have hard days. There's still times, challenges to overcome, but I know who I am, and I know what I'm supposed to do. And I've never been more sure of anything in my entire life. It's incredible.
And that was just your first guitar.
That was number one. Yeah.
And you have built several since, and you have
Yep.
also heard back from some of the people who own the guitars, perhaps,
Yeah.
some of the stories that kind of fit with the vision that you had in becoming a luthier in the first place.
Yeah.
There's one thing that stands out from the conversation that we had before, and that is, this is not an assembly line process of building guitars. This is not,
Correct.
okay, this is not a piece of the puzzle and we get A, B, C, slot A, B, and C, and that whole thing. That is not what you do.
Right.
Not only is there the physical and the tangible aspect of putting a guitar together, but there's more to that. Did you want to talk a little bit about, some of the intangible things, some of what I get, the emotion, the sensitivity,
Sure.
the spirituality of building these guitars? What's your thoughts on that?
I appreciate that. And I also realize that not everybody sees things the way I do, and I'm fine with that. And so my intention is never to say, hey, this is what I believe and everybody else should do the same. This is just how I perceive life and how I've experienced my journey, if you will. And so, but I believe in a higher power, and I believe that higher power used music to save my life. That being said, I believe that there's life in all things. This piece of wood, this piece of ebony, yes, it was a living tree at one point, but I'm talking about something deeper. I'm talking about on a elemental level. Okay. I believe that all matter is some form of organized intelligence. There's energy, there's life to it. One of the examples I'll give, if you go onto YouTube and look up Dr. Emoto's water experiment, or you can even look up the rice experiment, they do these experiments where they use positive words and things, and I'll give you an example. I'll just kind of make this shorter. My wife and I did the rice test. We took and boiled a pot of rice and we split it into half and put half in one Glad container and put the lid on it, half into another, put the lid on it. And the only difference between the two is I wrote love on one and hate on the other. This was 10 years ago. We put them on our counter and left them there for, I don't know, 3 months, you know. And after all that time, I peeled the lid off of the hate rice, and the mold had grown like hair up under the lid. And there was no visible white. You could move a fork or something and find some white rice underneath. But then I pulled the lid off of the love rice, and there was one spot that was about that big that was tan brown, and the rest was the dingy white. Now, this wasn't a laboratory. It's not scientific. It's anecdotal. I get it. But I watched something happen. And we weren't talking to it. Some of the experiments you'll see on YouTube, people sing to one and yell at the other. We just wrote the words and would go over and look at it. But something happened, something associated. The energy, this is my best explanation, is the energy that we associate with those words somehow affected. And the only way is if there's some kind of intelligence or life with it. That's my theory, okay? So as a result, while I'm building guitars, if I'm gluing a neck blank together, I prepare everything. I get it all ready for the clamps and the glue. And the last thing I do before I put glue on that joint is I take a pencil and I'll write what I call love notes throughout my guitars. I'll write healing power of music, or beautiful tone, or love, gratitude, whatever I feel inspired to write at that moment. And then I put the glue on and put it in the clamp, and nobody will ever know it's there. But those messages are throughout my entire guitar. And when I'm all done with it, I believe personally that you can hear that love and intention in the voice of the final instrument.
This is not cookie cutter stuff.
Okay.
There is more to this. This man
Yeah.
puts in a lot more than what you come to expect. What you got there, Robert?
Okay. This contraption looks a little steampunk. This is my bending iron. And I turn on the heat gun, and this pipe, this section right here, gets to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I'll take the sides of the wood, or the guitar, the wood, I'll thin them down, and then I'll spray them with a water bottle so I mist it and get it all damp. And then I'll put it against this pipe, and I'll work it around there. And you'll hear the steam coming off it and the popping, and you know, and I'll just take my time, and that's how I bend sides for guitars and ukuleles and things like that. Now, I had this really cool experience, and this is a wood that's called Paduk. It's African. It's beautiful. It smells like sweet Play-Doh when you're working with it, when you're sanding it. It's just amazing. And I kind of thought it would make a great ukulele, so I bought some, and I start working on it, and I'm bending down low and the lower bout, and I can feel it's kind of resisting, not wanting to bend very well. And then I get around the waist, and it gets there, and then I go to the tightest bend of the guitar, which is the upper bout, those shoulders, or the ukulele, and I'm being really careful, and all of a sudden snap, and it just gives away. And oh, my heart, I mean, just feel like you get kicked in the gut, right? It's just brutal, like devastating to lose this beautiful piece of wood. So kind of recover for a few minutes, grab another piece of Duke, thinned it down, sanded it, got it all prepped, sprayed it down with water. And now I'm on high alert, so I'm going to be real careful this time. So I go through the whole process, and I get to that same upper bout, I'm being super careful, and snap, it goes again. And I'm devastated. I broke 3 sets of sides. And then on the 4th time, I finally got it to bend into this ukulele, right? With no break. There was one thing that I did different that I hadn't done the 3 previous times. Any guesses? You guys are going to think I'm an absolute nutcase, and I'm okay with that. Okay. I talked to it. That's what I did, is I talked to it. Okay. And I'm sitting here, and what happened was, first off, I put ukulele music on in the shop. some happy, uplifting ukulele music, and I'm playing that. By the way, if I'm building a guitar for somebody who has a catalog of music, I listen to their catalog of music while I'm building their guitar, so I can pre-program it with their style of playing. So that's a fun thing to do. If not, just give me a playlist of what you like and what you want to learn, and we'll do that. So I've got ukulele music playing in the background, and I'm nervous as heck. And I spray the thing, and okay, here we go. I put it on there, and as soon as I touch that wood to the piping hot, iron, this steam of smoke, and it almost sounded like this wood was screaming in pain, as you could literally hear whistling of steam coming off of this thing. And man, all of a sudden I just started, saying, hey, I know this sucks right now. It's hot. It hurts. I'm stretching you in ways you don't want to be stretched. Hang in there. When I'm done with you, I'm going to turn you into something that you can't even imagine. You hear that sound? When we're done, you're going to be able to make that kind of music. You're going to bring light into the world. You're going to lift others. You're going to make a difference in this world. Work with me. Be patient. And let's do this. And for some reason, we were able to bend those sides. And it worked. And it cooperated for the first time after breaking 3 other sets. It wasn't until probably 3 years later, I had a young couple in my shop here visiting, and I was sharing, some of the spiritual experiences that I've had with building guitars and the love notes, and we were having some beautiful connecting moments and a couple tearful moments. And I had said something, I don't even remember what I was talking about at the time, but I said something about a higher power, and she goes, wait, hold on. But I don't believe in a God. If there were a God, then why would we suffer? Why would he allow us to suffer the way he does? And for some reason at that moment, I thought about this ukulele, and I said, can I share something with you? So I went and I grabbed the ukulele and the sides and the bending iron, and I shared that experience with them. And at the end of it, I said, look, we are the ukulele sides. There are going to be times in life where we're going to be really put to it, right? And it's going to suck. But if we're in our hardest times, if we were to listen, could we not hear the great creator speaking the same words to us? Look, I know it's hot right now. It hurts. I'm stretching you in ways that you don't want to be stretched right now. Work with me. Trust me. Hang in there. Because when I'm done with you, you're not even going to recognize what I turn you into. And when I'm done with you, you're going to bring light into the world, and you're going to lift others, and you're going to be able to make a beautiful sound. And when I said that with them, she had tears running down her face, and she says, okay, that makes sense, for the first time in my life. And they've become very dear friends of mine, and they come in regularly, and we don't really talk about religion or spiritual stuff. I mean, we'll share experiences, but I'm not there to try to convert them or anything. But what a beautiful perspective. And I'm so grateful that I had that experience and that opportunity to learn such a beautiful lesson, because now I look back on my life when I was going through those really difficult times and I wanted to break. And it puts perspective into it. And now I look at my life, what I'm doing now, and the lives that I get to affect. And that's exactly, I am the ukulele sides. And I think we all can be,
What a beautiful story that was, Robert. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Let me read something. Let's see. From Griff, makers impart part of their souls into each piece they create.
Yeah, I agree.
Isn't that the truth? You have built how many guitars? How many guitars have you?
Oh, a few dozen. With strings on, I'm around the 40 something mark. Not long. It's actually, kind of, I guess here's the way to put it. I don't feel like I've earned it. I've only built a few, dozen guitars, and there's nothing logically that says that I should be able to get the results that I get. But I feel like there's a bigger set of hands that are helping me to have a better result than I deserve, if that's fair to say.
Okay. Um, you've made a number of guitars. You posted a number of them on your website.
Yeah,
You don't sell them all. You actually hold on to them, or is that
some,
did I
some.
understand that correctly?
Well, actually, most of them are for sale. I mean, I do have to keep the lights on,
Okay.
but no, in all reality, there's only a handful of guitars that I wouldn't sell. Number one would be the very first one that I built. We named it Edie, and that one I'm just going to hold on to forever. It's an heirloom for us. And it's funny because I made the neck a little too narrow for my big fat sausage fingers, so I can't play it very well. But I lend it out. It's been used on recordings. It's been on TV. It's been seen and heard by millions of people all over the world. It's incredible, but that one I'll never sell. The first electric I'll never sell just because of it's the first. So
Absolutely. 000.
other than that, everything else has got a price.
Now that I've got you online, this is one of the guitars that you had built.
Oh, that's a fun
Oh,
one.
yes.
All right. So here. So I have questions.
Yes.
This was at the NAMM show, all right?
Yeah.
And apparently you had a number of your guitars that were there, but you did a couple of videos on this particular guitar itself. And when I picked it up, I was with Jason Steiner, who is a G4V grad, and he's also president of Hero Stock. He took the photograph, and he goes, "I got to tell you about Rask guitars." But rather than from hearing it from him, I'd like you. Can you talk a little bit about that guitar? And
You bet. You bet. So that guitar is what we call the Aloha. It was commissioned by my brother of all people, and he wanted a very special Hawaiian themed guitar. So of course we put the islands in the back. That little heel cap there that you're looking at with the whaling vessel, that is scrimshaw art done by a world-renowned scrimshaw artist by the name of Bob Hergert. And that's basically a whole bunch of dots, hundreds of thousands of dots that he's done to make that picture.
Wow.
And the piece of material that is a 8,000-year-old walrus tusk, fossilized walrus tusk. And so
you
that's
can't
a
just buy
really
that
special.
one off of Amazon, I'm guessing.
Nah, the Amazon's a little low on stock right now, but yeah, yep.
What a thrill to pick that guitar up.
All Koa.
I thought, wow, it's just sitting here. And
Yeah,
there's no one
yeah.
around looking to see if I pick it up. So I thought, I got to take a picture with this. I got to send this back to my Hawaiian relatives and show them.
I am going to
picked my
take you
guitar.
into my studio here because
Cool. I was
I
hoping you would
actually
be
happen
giving us a brief tour.
I actually happen to have that guitar here in stock
No
still.
figures. The
And
one that's for
so
sale. Oh no.
it's my brother's. It's my brother's. It's going to go back to him. But
I held
there
that
were
guitar.
the turtles
Oh,
on the
yeah.
on the front.
Nice. I didn't even pay that close attention to the turtle or the tiki on the bottom. I didn't even.
Yeah,
flip the
I'll show you
guitar
that
over to
next.
see the
So
tiki.
the turtles, he says, I want two turtles holding fins to represent me and my wife. I said, okay, great. So I told him since he doesn't have any heart, we put the heart all on his wife, and
Oh, nice.
that one represents
Nice. Oh,
her.
it's beautiful. It was beautiful.
I try to get the reflection off of there. There's a hibiscus flower. There we go on the headstock, and then on the back of the headstock we've got the sunset.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Wow.
Okay, so
And
that
I
was
remember
really
it feeling
fun.
really light. What is?
Yeah,
Can you tell us the wood, the tone woods that you're
It's
using?
all Koa wood, top
That's what
and
I
everything.
thought. That's what I
And
thought.
and the interesting thing is with Koa, I'm not a big fan of Koa typically, tonally. It's a little subdued and mellow. This particular guitar does not sound like most Koa guitars, though. I'm gonna just strum a couple chords and see.
Okay.
It might even be out of tune, so this could be a train wreck.
Oh, but you know what? We got to make sure that your original sound for musicians is on so we could hear it. We'll have to do this one offline. We'll have to do that one offline.
Let me show you the last thing on it, though.
Are you showing us everything? Is this the museum that you're showing us?
This is my front office here.
Oh, okay.
Trying to get the light right so I can. Here we go. Maybe there we go.
Okay.
There's the tiki.
Oh yeah.
And then I had to have a
Ah,
special cable made. So he has a pineapple in his mouth.
oh, of course. Aloha.
So
That's
that's
awesome,
the
Robert.
end graft.
Man, oh man, that is beautiful. Yeah, definitely. I encourage our community to take a look at the YouTube page for Ask Guitars, and Robert steps us through really start to finish, and it's really, really quite remarkable. Well,
I'll
listen.
show you a little bit about the shop here.
Oh, okay.
This is
yeah. Hey, we can see
this is the most recent to be completed.
And what
This
is the wood,
one,
what are the tone woods on that one?
this is my favorite combination. It's Honduran rosewood on the back and the
Ooh.
sides.
Mm.
And then the top is a Sinker redwood top. And it's
Oh,
really
wow.
dusty because it's sitting in the shop. But
Hey, just you do give tours, don't you?
yeah, uh-huh.
We're
Yeah, I'll let people come in, check out things for sure.
real good.
Love to have people here.
Okay, well, listen, we're coming up on the end of the hour and 45 minutes that we scheduled.
Thank you for allowing me to show you and share with you all of this stuff.
It's an honor having you. I just want to make sure that if there are any questions that we throw them in the chat, and we'll
Sure.
go ahead and I'm going to give you 1 minute to throw your questions in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and just open, let's see, the microphone for our co-host Daniel. Let's see.
Yes,
Daniel,
out
let me
here.
see. Let me just get ready. But before we do that, I'm going to read
I'm
this.
still, my jaw's got to come off the ground yet.
I
so.
know. I know. I hear you. Promo
Robert, you're
for,
just an inspiring and amazing man.
Thank you.
Let me just go ahead and give everyone 1 minute to throw in their questions after I read this promo about Guitars for Vets. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our cyber chapter allows veterans to enroll in the G4V program free of charge and complete private lessons online. These lessons are individualized and designed to help veterans learn guitar at their own pace. Upon completing our 11-lesson program, veterans will receive a new acoustic guitar, the accessories needed to continue playing. Registration for G4V Cyber Chapter opens on the first day of every month and remains open until full capacity is reached. If you'd like more details about that or support our mission, go to guitarsforvets.org and help us put music in the hands of our heroes. Okay. All right, Dan, do we have any questions? Yeah, thanks,
If it's
Dan.
okay, there's two questions in there that look like they got missed. I want to just not let them go by,
Nope.
if that's okay.
We'll-
One was
we'll-
about a laminated travel guitar.
Mhm.
One of the backpackers. Wonderful. That's an instance where it should be laminated because you're backpacking with it. You're going to have it. You may be out camping and it might start raining. And of course, wood is hygroscopic. It's going to grow and expand or contract depending on whether it's humid or dry, and laminating it eliminates that. So it's going to be a more stable guitar for backpacking. So for what it is, that's the same way about like the carbon fiber guitars. They don't change. They're not affected by the environment. So they have their purpose. They're wonderful. They're not going to have that liveliness of a piece of wood, but they have their place for sure.
Yeah.
The other question that I saw was, do I build left-handed guitars?
That's the one.
I have not yet. Although I have a couple of parts because I got it wrong and did it backwards. So when I'm ready to, but no, it's pretty much the same thing. You just reverse everything. So it'd be a very easy thing to do. I would do it for a custom order.
Real good. Listen, it's time to wrap it up. So
Now
I wanna
Kathy
thank
wants to
Robert
beat
Rask
me
for
up, right?
joining us today. Robert,
Thank you for having
again.
me.
Thank you.
It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
I'd like to also thank our panel of
It
instructors.
is a great
Daniel,
question.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes,
thank
sir.
you, Rich. Thank you, Bruce. Paul Lilly, if you're out there, always want to thank you as well too. And thank you all for joining us as well. Hope you got
Robert.
something out of it today. Please make sure
Namaste.
to drop us a
Thank you.
comment, a message on the G4V Learning Center, the thread itself. We'll go ahead and make this recording available to you if you missed any part of it. So till then, I'm Tom Lamog, Guitars for Vets and the Challenge American Veteran Arts Community. We'll see you hopefully at the next live event, and take care of yourselves, everyone.
Thank you.